after 8 years of this Liberal government, Canada has never felt so polarized. That's not just my opinion. That's a senior Liberal MP who said the following. Last, I think it's time to stop dividing Canadians, to stop pitting one part of the population against another. He said, I can't help but notice with regret that both tone and the policies of the government have changed drastically on the eve and during the last election campaign. A decision was made to wedge, to divide, to stigmatize. It's time to stop with the division and the distractions. I couldn't agree more, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister would have you believe that your neighbour is your enemy. We're all feeling the financial pressure caused by this government's inflationary spending. 67% of Canadians believe that the country is broken. 56% of Canadians are concerned that they won't have enough money to retire. Canadians are out of money, and the Liberal government is out of touch. After 8 years of this broken government, it's clear that the only solution is a new majority Conservative government. Speaker, enough with the division and dividing for political gain. It's time to bring back hope to Canadians. Conservatives will unite Canadians for freedom. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians are increasingly feeling like Canada is broken. Instead of owning up to his failures, the Prime Minister has called people names and pitted Canadians against each other. Friends, family, co-workers who to this day won't talk to each other because of how this Prime Minister has stoked divisiveness. Why does this Prime Minister continue to divide and distract Canadians from his failures?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the work of the member opposite. I simply do not understand why it is that when we try to improve the situation of Canadians, on 2 different occasions, Mr. Speaker, we reduced taxes for middle-class Canadians and the Conservatives voted against. On 2 different occasions, we reduced taxes on small business owners, Mr. Speaker, and the Conservatives voted against that as well. We've been investing in Canadians, and the $10 a day childcare agreement is the latest example. Why won't the Conservatives be there for Canadians when they need it most?
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite clearly didn't take lessons when her colleague, the Liberal member for Louis-Hébert, called on this Liberal government to stop dividing Canadians, to stop pitting one part of the population against another, to stop with the division, to stop with the distractions. Our Conservative leader's positive message is enough divide and conquer, unite Canadians. Again, why does this Prime Minister continue to divide and distract Canadians from his failures?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry.
No lessons from these Conservatives. If there's one Canadian who has stoked fear in our society, is the leader of the Conservative, Mr. Speaker. And Canadians watching at home on Friday know that, Mr. Speaker. This is time to unite Canadians. This is time to talk about Canada, to talk up Canada. We are winning around the world. We are having record investment in this country. Every parliamentarian here should talk up Canada, Mr. Speaker. It's not time to stoke fear. It's time to unite Canadians, to seize the moment and be ambitious.
We had a really good start. That was pretty good. The Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
He said it's time to stop dividing Canadians. And what's happened in the last year, Canadians haven't been more divided than ever. Inflation's at a 40-year high, 50% of Canadians are cutting on groceries, rent is up, and mortgage costs are up, except you can't question these issues. You're called unpatriotic by this government. Canadians are struggling and the Prime Minister wants to keep dividing. How come this government won't even take the advice of its own Liberal MP?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite is right. Canadians are struggling, and Canadians don't seem to understand why the Conservative Party doesn't want to help them. We have put forward measures in order to support Canadians through this difficult time, whether it's doubling of the GST tax credit, our rental supports, our dental supports for children, which have helped over 200,000 children go to the dentist, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives voted against that measure. I think that the Conservative Party needs to look themselves in the mirror and decide how it is that they can actually help improve the situation in this country rather than voting down measures that support Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we did support the government with the GST supplement. that is actually running out now. What we didn't support was a process to distribute dental and rental benefits by a process that's been called into question by the Parliamentary Budget Officer and the Auditor General, who says it increases the risk of fraud. But if you listen to everybody else, this government says all these issues are someone else's problems. They happen outside of Canada. That means that this government doesn't believe it has the responsibility or the ability to fix the problems that they cause. So will the government finally take responsibility for the issues that they've caused?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for his question, but I seem to feel that we need to remind the Conservatives that it's this government that decided in 2016 to take a true strategy on poverty in this country. Right. This government implemented the CCB that lifted 3.5 million families out of struggles. 6 million children were helped by that program. They voted against it. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that has implemented childcare, subsidized, affordable, high-quality childcare across this country from coast to coast to coast. Yet they grudgingly support that. They don't know what they support, but they don't support Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Order. 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 Ask questions. Get on the list to ask questions. The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of Liberal failure, more Canadians feel that our country is broken in so many ways. The Prime Minister doesn't want to hear it and tries to deny it, but it's true. He blames the rest of the world and shames other people for the problems that his Liberal government created. Instead of dividing Canadians against each other to distract from Liberal failure, will he finally take some responsibility and let Conservatives fix what he broke?
Yeah! The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, it's honestly quite disturbing to hear a member of Parliament talking about Canada being broken, Mr. Speaker. At a time where you see division in the world, let's unite together to build up Canada, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about our economy. Let's talk about what we're doing for Canadians. Let's be together, Mr. Speaker, not to stoke fear, but to stoke hope in Canadians. That's what we're doing on this side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker. We know Canadians know we have their back. We will continue to work for them at every step of the way.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, the 1.5 million Canadians who are using the food bank now that it never had before, they'd have something different to say than what he had to say. That's right. The government can ignore the opposition all that they want, but one of their own Liberal members called out their government last year, and I'll quote, "Both tone and the policies of my government changed drastically on the eve and during the last election campaign. From a positive and unifying approach, a decision was made to wedge, to divide, and to stigmatize." Wow. One more time, Mr. Speaker, when will they take responsibility for what they broke?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry.
Again, Canadians are watching. You know, just what you hear this morning, it's all about broken, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about building together, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're doing on this side, and I think every member of Parliament wants to do that. Let's look at what we've done together. We've been there for seniors. We've been there for children, Mr. Speaker. We've been there to help Canadians when they need it most. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we rebuilt our industrial policy. We landed significant deals when it comes to the aerospace industry. We have the largest hydrogen plant in North America in Edmonton, Mr. Speaker. Things are working well. We need to work together to help Canadians.